Hey everybody, and welcome to the Growth Experience Podcast. I am your host, Chris Dye. Our hope is that by listening to this podcast, you realize that you have a gift. And by believing in your gift, you can uncover your purpose and have vision for your life. Whether you're listening in your car, at home, or watching on YouTube, thank you for tuning in, and let's go! Hey everybody, welcome to episode 35 of the Growth Experience Podcast. Very excited for now the new year. Last episode, Kelsey and I, we do like a wife and husband thing. So she was our last episode of the year. And at that time we said, Happy New Year, because it wasn't quite 2024 yet. But welcome to the new year. I hope you had a very happy one. Praying fruitfulness and blessings on your year this year. And we're going to get started right out of the gate with somebody that I've been trying to connect with for a little while now about being on the show, and I'm very excited that she's able to be here today. I do want to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Community Land Title. CLT is a full-service land title and escrow settlement provider here to protect your real estate investments. When you work with their knowledgeable team, you'll be guided through the process in a transparent and timely way. Shout out to Matthew Purdom, everybody over at Community Land Title. Really appreciate you guys, love you guys, your professionalism and how you treat our clients and the agents that work in our office. So thank you all so much. Without any delay, I want to introduce Jannai Smith. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so today we talked about it kind of yesterday that this is an unscripted show, right? It's called The Growth Experience.
For sure.
And really what we've been able to kind of cultivate so far in 2023 is just an air of transparency and being able to like talk through the stuff that you've been through to get you where you are. And, there've been some tears here and things like that. So you don't have to do that. But, if they come, don't worry about it. Like, it's all good. So just talk to us about, like, the beginning of your journey. Where are you from? What's Jannai all about?
Yeah. So I'm from Lafayette, Indiana. Boiler up, baby.
Oh, boiler up.
Black and gold.
We got Jeff.
That we do. And so I started my life in Lafayette, Indiana. Went to McCutcheon High School. Shout out to them. And I played a lot of sports. I was a football manager. I played basketball. I did track. And then went into track in college at Indiana State. Go Trees. And then transferred over to Ball State and graduated with my bachelor's in communications and a minor in sports studies.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so then I was actually working at a detention facility, YOC, Youth Opportunity Center, with kids trying to get a second chance, whether they were court ordered or they were in foster care. Could have been multitudes of things.
Yeah.
And so I did that for 3 years. I loved it, but it was very taxing emotionally.
Oh, for sure.
And so I was like, I got to find something new. I ended up getting a call from someone. They were like, why don't you do teaching? We need teachers. And I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Like, I love kids. I love to be around them and be a mentor to them. So I actually started coaching right out of high school when I was back in Terre Haute at Indiana State, and absolutely found a love for coaching. Yeah. So I was actually the same age as some of the girls, and we kind of had a lie about my age, which was really neat. It's hilarious. So
a little.
Yeah,
no big deal.
I was coaching I was coaching basketball, and then I'd actually been coaching at a middle school, and they were like, "Hey, we need teachers. Would you mind applying for the position?" And I was like, "Okay, but I don't have a teaching license." And they were like, "That's fine. We just need someone." So I applied, got the position, and then the volleyball coach ended up leaving, and they asked me if I would come coach volleyball. So I was coaching volleyball, basketball, and track and teaching.
Wow.
And then I loved it, but I had another opportunity to go teach in Colorado, Estes Park.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and got to live in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains.
Had you ever been out west?
No, not until then.
Okay.
Yeah, they flew me out, and they were like, hey, we want to interview you. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So it was actually Honda, the dealership.
Yeah.
It was their philanthropy.
Okay.
They opened up this school that's not like your normal learning.
Right.
You know, you go out and you walk a mountain and you measure the circumference for math class. So it was super neat. I ended up rupturing my Achilles twice in 1 month.
Oh my
Had back-to-back
gosh.
surgeries, so I had to come home. And then I was just like sitting there, you know, COVID was about to happen. And I was like, I don't know like what I want for my life. So
Yeah.
I ended up starting my own business, running just volleyball training, Goldsmith. Um, and then I ended up moving to Louisville, and I have now fallen in love with it, decided to get my real estate license, and left teaching. And here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, sorry, that was a lot.
No, I can appreciate it. So, like for me, there's a guy, a podcaster that I listen to. You'd probably really like him. His name's Tim Ross.
I'll have to check them out.
Check him out, The Basement Podcast.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, it's awesome. But he says something. He says, "I see everything in pictures." And so for me, as I'm going through your story, like there are some things that I want to dissect a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So first, the transition between school and it sounds like your first job of being with kids that need a second chance.
Yeah.
So was there something that like sparked that for you? Like,
Yeah.
why was that
Ooh,
appealing?
good question.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna skip over that one. You know, what made that appealing to you? Because that's not everybody's cup of tea. You know, like that's not everybody's first choice of first jobs out of college. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I actually had heard about this position. I'd always been working in a gym, even in college. I worked at the rec center. I'd always been a lifeguard. But I've always had this love for kids.
Okay.
The love for kids comes from my sister had kids very young. She had 5 kids. Shout out nieces and nephews, love you. And she started right around like 14.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of got that responsibility of my nieces and nephews early on. And we just didn't have money. I mean, there were times where we didn't have electric or water at one time, and I would have to shower over at the school. Yeah. And so I've always just wanted to be that person that I never had, you know. I love my mom, but she was working 4 jobs, so she could never make it to any of my games. She didn't make it to my graduation. So it's always kind of been me, and I knew like I wanted something more for kids, you know. And if it means that their parent can't show up because they're trying to put food on the table, then I'll be that support system. So I even find myself doing that. You know, I had a girl last night. Her mom comes up to me and she's like, "I'm a single mom. I've got 2 kids. My daughter can't make it to practice on Friday." And I'm like, "Okay, why? Why can't she make it?" And she's like, "I can't get her there. I can't be in 2 places at once." You know, and she's almost in tears. And I'm like, "Call me. Like, I have a car. I will come pick your daughter up." We're a community, and that's another. I just love the team aspect of like family. So yeah, it came early on. I have a love for kids for that reason, and that's what I aim to do.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And thank you for being transparent about that.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, there's a lot of that in my own story as well. Growing up, my mom had me when she was 19.
Okay.
And she entered into a period of, and I was born into this environment, drug addiction, you know, and all of these different things. And, you know, the people that have listened to the podcast, she and I actually do the first 2 episodes together, like talking about our stories and how intense it was. And so, of course, that shapes you, right? That molds you.
Absolutely.
That gives you a viewpoint that not a lot of people have, right?
Yeah.
And if they do, they try and run from it rather than run into it and help
face
other
it,
people.
for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so cool here, even just the onset. This is going to be an incredible episode of your story. And so that's really amazing. So give me kind of a time frame. What year is this that, you know, you graduate, you go into working? What year was that?
So that would have been 2015.
Okay. And then what year so we went to Colorado. It was gorgeous. I've been out west. I've been to California. Like, I got family in California and stuff. Never been to Colorado. It was incredible.
So beautiful.
It's
God's country. Like, that's what I call it.
Yeah. And I about died climbing this mountain that Kelsey wanted to climb. She was, the name escapes me.
We had the Gardens of the Gods,
So
the Peaks,
we
Sisters.
went to Garden of the Gods to just look around. But it's like a mountain with a little town at the bottom of it. Oh, you know what it is if I told you.
Is it the Rockies? You got Boulder and
it's like
Denver.
It's not Pikes Peak.
Oh, Pikes Peak is right there too.
Okay, maybe that.
Yeah, could be Pikes Peak.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. And,
yeah.
I wanted to stop. It was like 12,000 steps or something like that. And I wanted to stop at like 6. And she was like, let's go one more. Let's go. Like, because there's turnarounds.
Get that second win.
Yeah. She's like, let's go one more. And I'm like, okay. We did 8,000. And I was like, I'm about to die. I'm going to die.
But you did it.
And I did it. And I do want to go back. I want to do the whole thing again. So that was pretty amazing. So I love, can you talk about like when you're in these seasons of transition, right? You did, and got your teaching license and this and that, transitioning from one thing to another, like it sounds like when you're telling the story that, I just jumped into this thing. But can you talk about like, right? Can you talk about just what you're thinking about in those moments of like, why would I assume you're kind of a spontaneous person anyway, a little bit of a trigger puller, as am I. But can you just talk about like navigating those different transitions in your life?
Yeah, for sure. I'm very much like everything happens for a reason, right? So whether it's like I wake up one morning and I'm just like, oh, God's calling me to do this, or I've always wanted to do this. I'm very much like, I'm going to follow it. And my intuition is usually right on point. Whether it's, it hurts at the moment or it's like, it feels great.
Right.
And so, so when transitioning, I'm just, for instance, like going back a little bit, coming out of high school, like I said, I wanted to coach. So my thing was like, I'm going to coach one way or another.
Yeah.
So I called every area school. I think I called like 20, 25 schools until I finally got a yes.
Yeah.
Where they were like, actually, one of our coaches just quit. Can you start tomorrow? And I was like, it's there. Like, you've got to make the phone calls. You've got to do the things that if you want it, then go get it.
Right.
So my mindset just in those transition times are just like, do it. Like, why not? Why not you?
What's the best that could happen? I've heard somebody say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we all talk about what's the worst that could happen.
Yeah, and it's like, I love that. I'm going to hold on to that now. That's a really aha moment because, like, you are what you think, you are what you say. So if you're saying, like, I want to be debt free, well, then you're putting the negative on it. So what's the worst that can happen? You're putting negative in there. What's the best that could happen? Like, I love that just mind shift that I just had. Yeah. That was awesome.
Yeah, so I heard that. I don't know if you know who Craig Rochelle is.
No, but I need to talk to him.
He's a big time pastor.
Okay.
And so he puts on this summit for like business leaders, pastors, called the Global Leadership Summit.
Okay.
So
actually, I've heard of Global Leadership.
Yeah, GLS.
Yep. Okay.
So he runs that deal.
Okay.
And so he said that one time, and that was a shift for me as well.
Yeah.
Like, because what I love too is, and I want to dissect this as well, like if you feel like God is prompting you to do something, right? And then you just like 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be an easy thing.
Yeah.
It's there's usually more than one step involved. And so for you to call one school and get a no, 2 schools and get a no, but still know, right, that like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. And then to make that call, and then I'm sure he provided provision in that school where you were to be able to coach. And so I think that's super important when we talk about like, well, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my calling is. The growth experience is about your giftings, right? What are you gifted in?
Right.
So follow that.
Yeah.
No matter where it takes you. It could be painful at first, like you said. It could be somewhere you don't necessarily want to go. But if that's where God is calling you to be, then like,
there's a reason for it.
You better do it.
Yeah.
And he's going to bless that.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And I'm all about finding purpose. I think that's part of my purpose is helping others find that.
Love it.
I think that's why I love coaching. It's like these young people, they are put in positions or they have circumstances, and it's just like, okay, yeah, you had the circumstance. I had circumstances too. And, I'm happy with where I'm at. There's not been, there's times where I have been, depressed or like, I've had my own suicide stuff. So it's like, yeah, you get to that moment, but you know what? Like looking back, I'm so happy that that didn't happen because now I can look back and say, wow, not only did you make it past that, but you got to everywhere that you had ever hoped you could be. But it took some time, you know, and it took that patience and it took that learning and those hard lessons. But yeah, I made it.
Drop the dang mic. We're done. Cut. No, wow. Thank you so much for being vulnerable, and that's amazing. I've had my struggles there too. You know, I've had a lot of loss in my life. I had a lot of, you know, my mom and I were separated from when I was 4 to 12 years old. Didn't know where she was, if she was alive. And you know, she came back to my life, and you know, I had my own extreme bout with depression. After my best friend died in a car accident right before Kelsey and I got married. Like, he was going to be the best man at my wedding. And
gave me shivers,
and I had my own, and it's not something it's a piece of my story that I still kind of tuck in sometimes. But my own bouts with suicidal ideations, you know, it's like, and people that listen to this that know me is going to be surprised by that, because it's probably the first time I've said it on the show in that manner.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much for your transparency. And that leads to, I always say, connection is in vulnerability. And that's the audience that we've started to grow and cultivate and have reached out to us and have thanked us for. You know, this little tiny podcast with this one little idea that I actually had for 2 years before I ever put it in motion. And so...
building that foundation.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, timing, right? Waiting for God's timing to, because if I'd started it when I wanted to, it probably wouldn't have been this. It would have just been about money and business and things like that, and it would have flopped. And so when I had the clear vision of that, no, it's supposed to be about vulnerability, transparency, being raw, right? So, wow, golly, I really appreciate you and your story.
Thank you.
That's incredible, and I can obviously see why. We haven't gotten to speak a lot in person together outside of maybe the 10, 15 minutes when you walked before you came into the studio. And this is not going to be the last time we have you in the
thank
show.
you.
I'm excited about having you back and continuing to share and peel back layers, because people need to hear this stuff. You know?
Yeah, it's super important. I mean, I think I got comfortable with just where I'm at. You know, I had issues with my own mom, you know, and sorry, Mom. Yeah, I'm going to put it out there. You know, we have our frustrations with each other, but when I finally took the time to realize what she's gone through and why she is the way she is and the things she does, it made me feel like, this makes sense. You know what I mean? It's not
something you choose.
It's not something you choose at all. Yeah, it's like I think it's easy for me to be vulnerable and say what's on my mind because I'm not coming with bad intentions. I'm always coming with good intentions and just wanting to understand. And so, you know, sometimes I started thinking about this the other day. I'm like, you never teeter the line on like what comes out of your mouth. And I'm like, I don't know if I should. You know, I really don't, because I honestly don't come with bad intentions. I'm coming to understand where it is this person's coming from or why they feel the way they are. I'm very like, I think about this with my 12s and my 13-year-old girls that I coach. You know, sometimes I'm harsh and I just tell them how it is. And I tell them the truth. Like, hey, I don't know what's going on today, but I'm going to need you to get it together, sis. Like, come on. And she's looking at me, you know, about in tears. And I'm just like, but she knows I'm coming from a good place. I know she can do better than what she's doing. I know her potential's there. Not only the potential, but I've seen you do it. Or, you know, let me coach. I tell them that. Like, you don't get paid to coach. I do. So let me do my job. I'll let you know when you're doing a bad job. You know, they run into confidence issues a lot with girls. So, yeah, I don't know how I got on that little trail, but here we are.
No, I love that. And, you know, going back to like what you experienced, what your mom experienced, and being able to turn that ship around to be able to fuel others, right? I'm a Bible nerd. Like I geek out. And one of my favorite people in the Bible is Paul, right? And so in Philippians, he's telling the church of Philippi, I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, this is Philippians 1:12. Whatever's happened to me here is going to be used to spread the good news, right? Like, yes, there's so much that's happened to me. It's happened to you. It's evident just by talking to you. Your mom, my mom, right?
Yeah.
But the what we can do with that, how it can be used, can be really special. And you're using that to coach, in volleyball now. How long have you had Goldsmith?
Good question. So since 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
So COVID year, that's interesting.
Yeah,
We could
rolled it on
talk
out.
about that. Transition there if you want.
Yeah.
So, that felt like a spark for you that you were already doing these things, but moved back and said, hey, I want to still do coaching. And so talk about that, starting your own business, volleyball, right? Where you actually have touched the ball and things like can't be wearing masks playing volleyball. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I was working out of a gym and I was doing really, really well. I mean, I started with, I think, 8 clients, and then I was having 40 lessons in a week. So it was just an absolute amazing experience. And then I'm doing this, and then I'm looking at my check, and I'm like, they're taking 50%, and I know it's a check thing, but it's just like, it was more of a moral thing for me. It's like, that doesn't make any sense because I'm the only one getting charged 50% and everyone else only has to pay a $10 fee. I don't get that. And so I was like, you know what? I've got the clientele. These people love me. I love them. I'm just going to roll it out. So I just had to make sure that I was following COVID restrictions, making sure that I was wiping the balls off, and just making sure that we were, I would stand over here, they'd stand over here and serve. We still have our mask on. But I just didn't let that slow me down. I was just like, it is what it is. Maybe this is the time.
Love it.
And I just rolled with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
Because we can make excuses if we want to.
For sure.
Right? You could have easily said, well, all this is happening.
Yeah.
This isn't the right time.
Yeah.
But now you're 3 years into it and successful, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of your stuff that you posted on Facebook about the girls that you coach and, how confident they're becoming and what they're doing. And that's amazing.
That's been just a wild experience. Yeah. Yes. I mean, it goes to show you I'm just going to kind of go on a ramp on it. But, I started coaching at Wagner this year. I took the head position, and these girls had not won but 3 games in the last 3 years.
Wow.
And so I ended up, the coach prior to me had actually cut the whole JV team. So I only came in with 4 girls who had ever even played volleyball, never played club. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm just so competitive. In my head, I'm like,
I can see
oh
it.
my word,
this
is not going to work. What am I going to do? And so I was just like, you know what? You got to get as many touches on that ball until the season. So I started them in April. I started out with 4 girls. It moved to 8. And then by the end of the season, we had 22.
Wow.
And so between this, I had 22 girls, which is awesome, but only 4 had ever touched a ball. Half of them had never played a sport before.
Wow.
And then none of them had ever played volleyball other than those 4.
Yeah.
And so to teach them this game, not only am I teaching them the game, but they don't know what out of bounds is. They don't know what inbounds is. They don't know what offense or defense means. Right. So we're going from elementary
101 volleyball.
Yeah. And so then we end up running this season, and there were a couple games, of course, I'm going to say we should have won, and we didn't, but we ended up 16-10, which is we were 1 game short of the best school record that Wagner has ever had for volleyball.
And that was your first year?
First year,
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's absolutely incredible. But it goes to show, these kids just need someone that can believe in them.
Yeah.
That's them. It's not like I was on the court, you know? They did that.
Yeah.
They put in the time, they put in the effort, and they came together and collaborated, and it just made something beautiful. It was just an absolute amazing experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I'm sure there was so many growing pains throughout the season and conversations had, and that different line of all the adversity that you faced, the girls faced. Were all those kids from Wagner?
Yeah. Yep.
And you just what did you do to go from 4 to 22?
So I went into the cafeteria and I was just like, anyone want to sign up for volleyball? And I had a few girls come sign up. They're like, sure, it sounds fun. Like, my friend's doing
like
it.
A good time. Yeah.
Like, I'll come do it.
Right.
Then they get to practice and they're like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Right. This lady's crazy.
Right. That's their exact thoughts. And then they ended up, yes, I was hard on them, but they were learning and they believed in themselves. I gave them something to believe in. I believe in yourself. You can do it. Why can't you? Why not you? And so, we grew the program just from them actually going out and talking about it. When we started school, we actually only had, I think we were at 16 girls at that point. So Wagner's kind of this misfit of, it's in St. Matthews, but we actually get a lot of the West Side kids come in. So a lot of them don't have rides, they don't have transportation, they don't know that we're even having volleyball conditioning at this time. And so when they start school and then they hear about it, they're able to, they came and asked me and they're like, hey, can we come join? And I'm like, yeah, show up to practice. I'll see you there. Yeah. And so, it just kind of grew from word of mouth. And we did have our growing pains. I mean, some of the kids didn't make it to the end of the season. I'm very much like, you're going to buy in or you're not, but you're not going to take the rest of us down with you. So, if you got to get the boot, you got to get the boot. Try again next year.
Right.
So, yeah. It was definitely a crazy experience.
That's amazing. I don't know if I could do that. I mean, that's pretty incredible because to get that requires an extreme amount of belief in yourself that I'm sure you've had to build over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-belief.
I didn't even think about that. But
self-confidence.
Yeah.
So, obviously kudos to you, but that also doesn't happen without, like you said, you believing in them. Giving them something to believe in, right?
Yeah.
If not you, who? If
right.
not now, when? When are you going to do it? Right?
Yeah.
And so I love that story, and obviously that's an ongoing story. Are you back? You're going to be coaching?
Yeah, I'll be back. So right now, I'm actually going to tell you two things. One is about my basketball. When I played basketball, that's kind of where all that came from. But real quick, right now I'm coaching 5 teams, not just teams. I started my own club. I coach Wagner girls. I'm going to be coaching the Wagner boys. We're starting one of the first boy teams in Louisville, so I'm super stoked. And then I do volleyball training. And then, I run a league for the littles.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot at all times.
That's amazing.
Yeah, building the confidence and believing in myself. I wanted to go back to that because this was the spark for me. So I was in high school playing basketball. It was my love. I mean, I would wake up at 8 in the morning. I would walk to the park all summer, and I would go play on the pavement at the park. They called me Armstrong Girl because I was there every single day. I'd be there all day, and I would just play all day. Loved it. And it was the guys. I mean, there's no other girls there but me. And so I would play against them. They're older and stronger, but I was just like, this is going to be like, this is how I do it. Like my dad took me and played basketball with me early on when we had a really good relationship. He would take me to the park and he'd be like, all right, she's on my team. And so he built that confidence in me very young. And so I didn't care that I was the only girl. Like, I'm going to give you, and I'm competitive. So I'm going to give you all I got. So I would play all day, 8 to 8. But for some reason, I still was not on the varsity team at school. And I had a couple of high schools even reach out to me trying to get me to switch over to their school. And I was just like, we have a chance at state. And so I was like, I'm going to stay with this school even though I'm not playing. And so stuck with them. And I just remember my senior year, even junior year, I dressed varsity but played JV. And senior year, I was determined. I was like, I'm not sitting the bench this year. I'm a senior. I'm going to make this happen. And so one day at practice, I was on the, varsity. We scrimmaged them. And I was on basically the practice squad is what I'm going to call it. And I just remember, I was like, not today. It's not happening. So I literally stole the ball every single time. We're trying to do a walkthrough. I'm stealing the ball, and my coach is literally livid, but not with me. Like, he's like, why are you guys passing it where she could get it? It makes no sense. So he's like, switch jerseys. But I think he was just trying to teach a couple of them a lesson. And then by the end of the season, I just still remember that practice because in my heart, I knew today's the day.
And I can feel that from you.
Yeah, I'm going to make this happen. And so I ended up being our number one, number two defender. Ended up getting the coaches award. I ended up getting the mental attitude award. And so, yeah, that was the moment. I started going to the gym in the morning and at night. And this is in high school, I was just like, I got to get stronger. Like, you're not going to have a reason not to start me this year. Yeah. That was my end goal. Mentality, yeah. And that was the moment where I was just like, you can do anything. And it doesn't take your coach believing in you. Right. It doesn't take your teammates believing in you. You got to believe in yourself. Yeah. So, thank you for that. That really, reminded me of where that came from.
No, and I love that. And if you're not in the room, obviously, so, I can feel your passion and your mentality. I'm about to run through this daggone wall because of how much you just hype me up. Because, that's just what it takes. It takes what it takes. Yeah. Right? That's a really good book also. But there's no shortcuts.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
No, not at all.
If there's something that you want, and we talked about it before we came in the room, but, shout out to you for staying in there for the long game. Yeah. You probably could have gone to a different school and played quicker and done these different things, but at the end of the year, the satisfaction that you hung in there, you put in the work, you reaped the reward from that.
Yep. We went to the Final Four. I started on a Final Four team.
That's amazing.
So that's huge. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm serious because that's where. A lot of I'm an optimist. Yeah. So for me, that's kind of my superpower. It's it's a blessing and a curse.
For sure.
To where I don't see failure. I have to do it. Yeah. How do you know you're going to fail or succeed if you don't actually do the work? Yeah. And so I have to, I've told you, hey, I started this, it didn't work. Started this, didn't work. Started this, it's starting to work. Yeah. So that's just my mentality as well of, I'm just not going to allow my mind to tell me that I can't do it.
Absolutely. And I don't even look at it as failure. It's a lesson. Yeah. You know what I mean? Failure is irrelevant because at the end of the day, if that lesson did not happen, I would not be where I am. I would not have learned the lesson that I had learned. Right. And so failure is just like not a thing to me.
I agree. I don't even really like using the word. I always say you only fail if you quit.
Absolutely.
It's like if you're supposed to do something or you're in line to do something and you just decide one day to throw up your hands and say, I quit, then you might have failed. Yeah. But there are other reasons, behind that. And so I kind of agree. Yeah. It's like everybody says fail forward. And it's like, well, that's not failing. That's that's progression, That's not failing.
That's a great word, progression.
Yeah. It's progress. Yeah. Even if it's 0.1% a day.
Yeah.
Have
you ever heard that story about the marathon runners? I can't even remember. I wish I had the details on this, but basically the marathon runners, they had studied, the U.S. was winning the Olympics every year. And so I think it was the British. They ended up just trying to progress by 1% every single day. And then they pulled it off because they were 1% better every day. So they increased over the U.S. and whoever else. Yep. And it might have been the other way around. Sorry, U.S., if that was the case. But, yeah.
No, you're good. Have you read the book Atomic Habits?
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's a story like that.
Maybe that's the one that's probably where I got it
that's from. Where it's chiming a bell, so I don't know if that's right or not, but yeah, that's a really good book. And
great book.
100%, following those principles. I do want to touch on two more things. One, though, is you're doing these 5 different teams and leagues. You're a high mentality person. Your mindset, you're a driver. You're an achiever. We're wired similarly, so I can call that out in you. Talk about what it takes to perform at a high level consistently. How hard is consistency?
It's very hard. Yeah. I'm such a scheduler. When people see me sitting at a table, they're like, were you a teacher? And I was like, yeah. It's bad. I've got it all highlighted, colored, got it planned. And so I'm even trying to get better at that. But it's not only am I trying to high produce over here with coaching, but I'm also still trying to run real estate, right? So it's a hard balance. But I think where I'm different is I don't mind to skip a party to make sure that my stuff's done.
Let's go.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't need to be anywhere other than where I need to be. And so I think that's the difference. I found myself this year I quoted the words of like liberating, just freeing, to describe my last year, because it's probably the first year that I kind of let some things go. I let them slip, because I've always just been so like driven to make sure everything's done and done right, where I just was able to breathe this last year and to just be, you know, and like if I missed a meeting, I missed a meeting, and that's okay. But also now I'm looking back and I'm like, okay, well, look at where you are. Is this where you want to be? And it's like, okay, probably like it's not bad, but it's not greatest, right? And so then I have to make a decision like, okay, so you're going to get back on your high horse and make sure that these things are done. Are you going to miss, you know, the glory party to make sure that something's done? And no, I'm not missing that glory party, so I'll make sure everything's done. But no, just to make sure that you're high producing, it's a balance act, because, you know, you have a family, and so I'm sure that's hard, like trying to make sure that you're giving to your wife and you're giving to your kids every day, but still able to do what you do and run your business and follow your passions. Right. You know, I have something similar where I have two very bougie poodle doodles that take up a lot of my time. And I've got to make sure that they're attended to, but I still have to make sure that I'm able to run my business and run both businesses, I guess would be the way to explain that. So really, I follow a calendar. I make sure that if I'm falling short somewhere, like going to the gym, you know, that's been a hard thing. Okay, well then you need to wake up earlier. Right. You know, there's time in the day to get stuff done. And if there's not, you move it to the next day and you make sure it gets done. Right. And so that's just a checklist, agenda. Those have been two really big things. Okay. What about you? Like, how do you stay up there?
It's similar, just prioritization. Yeah. Right. So like this, whatever you make a priority, you'll get done. Yeah. You know, this show, my goal last year was to hit 52 episodes. Yeah. And we didn't quite get there. Right. Right. And part of that is because we moved the studio, we got an office, we built this out, you know, yada, yada, yada. I can make, you know, a few excuses in there, but there were some valid things. Yeah. And so what's my goal this year? Just like you said, I'm going to hit 52 episodes this year. Yeah. And if I got to double up or triple up on a week because I'm out of town the next week or whatever else, I'm going to do that. Yes. I'm going to make it happen. And so prioritization, you know, I run the real estate, my own business, and I consider myself, you know, in a leadership role within what we do here in the office. My mom and I are in full launch of our nonprofit, which I'm really excited about. Maybe we'll have to talk about.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about that.
And then I'm in school full time. I actually take classes right now full time because I never graduated from U of L. So shout out to Liberty University. I'm at Liberty right now doing some intro to Christian leadership and business management courses.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, and I've got a wife and 4 kids and all the things, right? So it's whatever you make a priority, but you need to be cognizant, right? You need to be aware if something's slipping, just like you said, because if I'm away, if I miss 2 bedtimes in a row, my kids let me know. Yep. Like they will let me know. Be like, and Olivia, as much as she leans towards other people, like she's a daddy's girl. She'll be 7 in February, and you know, there's just something about like the next day. If I miss 2 days in a row or something like that, I try and stay home a day. Yeah. Because she'll be like, Daddy, I miss you. Like I want you to hold me. Yeah. You know, and I want to be with you. Yeah. And so the other ones, like the 2 boys, and then obviously Lainey is very young, but Olivia feels it the most. And so she's my barometer, right? She's my where I take my temperature to say like, okay, I've been away for too long. And Kelsey lets me know too. She's she ain't shy either about like, and I've had to grow in that. You know, that's something that we've talked about on our Family Matters series. That's what we call it. Where she comes in and we do episodes. But yeah, similar things. You know, I keep a very tight calendar. Yep. We've got a business calendar, and then we have a family calendar. I had to get Kelsey to do that because I was like, hey, you know, I need to make sure I know what's going on with you guys and with myself. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just priorities, right? But then also there's something to be said for, it's called the law of release. Yeah. Right? Like if something's not serving, and I don't want this to sound selfish, right? Yeah. If something's not serving you, I believe in servant leadership, right? I believe you're supposed to put your own desires on the back burner compared to who in life that you're serving.
Yeah.
And that's a model that I try and follow. But if there's not growth happening, if something's not really serving you, your family, what you're involved in, then sometimes you got to prune that branch, you know, and cut that off.
That's what I found myself with this last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really do. I try to put people before me because I know what it's like to be on that backside.
Yeah.
You know, and so I would find myself doing things. You know, I travel a lot, so I think I have like 12 states left.
You do travel a lot.
Yeah.
Every time that I tried to get you on the show, no, I'm in Hollywood. I don't know, something like that. I'm like, dang.
Yeah. So I have like 12 states left, and
Okay.
you know, I got to visit my best friend in Oregon this year, which was phenomenal.
That was
yeah.
my bad.
Oregon. No, you're good. And so. Yes, it sounds great. It sounds like it's a vacation.
Yeah.
And no, she knows I love her to death, but I needed to be there for her. It was not a vacay for me. I didn't plan it for myself other than to see her.
Right.
You know, and so sometimes I would just always find myself doing things for others, but I never like, what do you want at this moment? You know, and so this last summer I was able to play in so many volleyball tournaments.
That's awesome.
And it was great, but then I find myself like, okay, I have to make a decision. Am I going to, you know, call off a showing and say, hey, can I show on Sunday as opposed to Saturday because Saturday's the tournament? And, you know, then I had to make a decision. If they can't, what does that look like for me? And so, yeah, it's just that balance. But, like, what I find myself within this last year is, like, some point you got to – I don't feel like it's selfish because if you don't fill your cup – then what can you give, you know? And my cup was just empty. Yeah. I mean, I was just at a, like, we're slurping nothing.
Right.
So.
Get the kid in the straw. You know, it's like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Matthew, knock it off. That's what I always tell my son.
So, yeah, I just found myself like, I need to pour into my cup or I'm not going to have a cup. It's going to be on the ground broken.
Right.
So, I think that's where... that was super helpful for me this year, and just knowing like sometimes, Jannai, it's okay to be selfish if it's a day or two, you know, because otherwise you're not. It's like the airplane where if you don't put your mask on, how can you give somebody else a mask?
Yeah, and Kelsey and I, that's what the last episode we filmed in 2023. That's what we talked about is the idea of rest.
Yes.
And the idea of refilling your cup and what rejuvenates you and it was only 25 minutes, so I thought it was a pretty good episode if you want to.
Yeah. I'll check it out for sure.
But, and for anybody else, because you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And like, I believe, this is my belief, maybe not everybody's, that, you know, God tells us when you are weary, come to me and I'll give you rest. And so that's what you know, I try really, really hard not to work on Sundays at all. Yeah. You know,
I'm heading that way too.
Yeah. And, you know, I do have people that will cover showings for me if I need it. But I mean, it's funny, like once you make that decision, how many times have I actually been asked to show a home in the last 3 years on a Sunday? It's probably been less than 5. Yeah. Right. And I've done those. Yeah. But because I know that like, it's not, once I make that decision for myself, it became not a common thing. Yeah. Right. Because, you know, those priorities were navigated, put where they are, and I believe that, like I said, God will bless that. You know, and He's faithful over that, and so I really haven't had to have that many opportunities to be out of the house on a Sunday. Yeah,
it's funny you say that because like I finally got to that point where I'm like, Jannai, you try to go 7 days a week, and like, yeah, you could do that in your younger years. We're adding some years now, right. And so I found myself like on a Sunday, like taking a nap, and I felt bad in the beginning. Yeah, like I felt bad for taking a nap, right. But I was so exhausted, and like I finally got to the point where I feel like I just had this conversation with God, and He's like, you're where you're supposed to be at all times. Yeah. I always have you where you're supposed to be. Yep. So if you're supposed to be in bed right now, you're supposed to be in bed right now. Yeah. Like you're not going to be anywhere you're not supposed to be. Right. And I know that just sounds crazy, but like I really feel that way. Like He puts me exactly where I'm supposed to be at every moment.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I do put a caveat on it sometimes. Yeah. Because I believe that everything is temporary. Yeah. Right. So I say you are where you're supposed to be, but if it's a tough season or if it's something you need to continue to push through, then you're not supposed to stay there. Yeah. Right? There are places where you're supposed to stay for a while. You're supposed to grow and cultivate and build, right? Build that
Mm-hmm.
foundation. But then there are other times where it's like, this is a desert season, right?
Yeah.
This is something that I'm working through. I'm believing for X, Y, and Z that he's going to take care of, and I give that to him and release that. But that's that law of release, to where I don't have to be in control all the time.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me.
Man, it's been hard, but like once
Yeah.
you let it go, it's a relief. It's like weight off your shoulders. It's like, no, God's got it. Like, He is in control, and
absolutely.
as much as I try to pretend like I am, it's not the case. So
Right.
the sooner I realize that, it'll make things a lot easier.
Yeah. No, I love that. Wow. I'm going to tell you, this is why I don't script episodes, because if I had, we would have talked all about real estate.
Yeah.
And you and your career, and we'll do that maybe another time. I'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
But I do want to touch on it because I want to, blow you up a little bit. Like, how long have you had your license?
I will be 2 years in April.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's a big milestone.
Yeah.
2 years and 5 years, and I'm almost a 5.
There you go.
That I've been doing it full time. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's amazing. Do you find that your connections and the relationships that you build in the volleyball world directly correlate to your real estate business?
I almost feel like it's opposite. Like my volleyball world is kind of what, well, it kind of like connects me to the real estate.
Okay.
Where, I'm starting to see more sphere come from the volleyball world, which is great. I don't know. I'm as competitive as I am, I'm still a connections person.
Yeah.
Where like real estate's great, and I love selling houses. It makes me happy because I can help someone do what they thought they could never do.
Right.
Or, like I never thought I was going to own a house, and so when I did, like I'm like, if I can do this, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's
that competitive spirit. I'm gonna get you there. Yeah.
So I love that, but like I said, I'm not money driven, and that's what hurts me because
I understand.
I'm more of like connections driven. So the more people I get to help, it's just more connections selfishly. But the real estate part, it's great, but I love that the show really, we didn't touch on that, and that's okay because that's not really like my MO. Like if I sell a house, great. And I have don't let me take away, I've been very fortunate in real estate.
Awesome.
But I think it's because of the connections.
Yeah.
I can connect with people easily.
Right.
I can meet you where you're at.
Yep.
And so that's been super helpful in my business.
100%. And that's what I coach the agents on in our office is like, whether you're like, you can be on the phone with somebody you don't even know. That's a complete stranger. The responsibility is ours to build rapport, right? It's to connect with that person where they are. And that's been my case in my career as well. Just being able to connect with anybody under the sun. Like I kind of just like, I enjoy that, right? Yeah. And then, they decide, I don't decide if they buy a house from me, right? Like they're the ones that have to sign the paperwork and, go do all the showings and X, Y, and Z. But, it's a relationship business. You're seeing that now, especially over the last year. Yeah. Really the last 6 to 8 months as rates and stuff have gone a little crazy. Thankfully coming back down a little bit, and that's another show for another day. Yeah. But yeah, I did want to touch on it because, obviously I met you, we connected through the realtor community, right? Yep. And so I always want to help your business out if I can.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll have to have you back. This show has blessed me, so I appreciate you for coming here.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. I'm glad we were able to finally connect and make it work. My fault on getting all that together, and so I just I'm very appreciative that you came. Yeah. Any kind of you've had so many nuggets, but any kind of parting words or wisdom wrapping up the episode.
Gosh. Find your purpose, find your passion, find your passion and run with it. It doesn't matter. I watch a lot of motivational stuff. And so Steve Harvey always talks about, even if it's cooking chicken, cook that chicken and sell that chicken. Yeah. If you can sell it for $10, you're going to make money. Yeah. And so I'm all about like find your passion and make it your life.
Yeah.
Because we're not here that long,
Right.
you know, we don't know when we're going.
Yeah.
But what I can say, like in this last like couple of years, I'm like, if I were to die tomorrow, like I lived an amazing life.
Come
I
on.
really have. Like, I'm gonna be happy.
Yeah.
Celebrate me.
Yeah.
Like celebrate me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Kelsey and I literally talked about that exact thing last night.
Oh wow.
Yeah, literally, like just, and not in a morbid way, you know, but just like, at the end of our lives, we should, you know, consider it. If we can look back, we should consider it a joy to experience all the things that we've experienced, and our purpose is to help people along the way.
Yeah.
Impact people, and that's always my goal and dream as well. So,
aspiring.
Yeah. 100%.
Aspire as many people as you can. Like that's the way to leave a legacy.
Right.
It's not about how much money, not about what you're driving, nothing. Like nothing more, because who cares?
Yeah.
Who's thinking about what you're driving?
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Right?
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter. And you know, that was my idea. We didn't even talk about it, and that's fine. But behind the Legacy Network, this platform, right? Like you can't leave anything that you don't. How you live determines what you leave.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have like time, temple, talent, treasure, tree. Those 5 things. And everybody says your network is your net worth, right?
Yeah.
Well, I believe your net worth is a combination of assets in those 5 categories.
Yeah.
And so, I love. We could talk all day.
Yeah.
I feel like, we're going to be best friends already, but no, thank you so much.
Yeah.
For coming
thank
on the
you.
show,
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Like I said, it blessed me, and I'm excited to have you back one day.
Excited for the next one.
Absolutely, and us to build our relationship in between this. You know,
Yeah.
I really feel connected to you, and you know, if there's anything that you ever need, and vice versa, I know I could call you.
Yeah,
but feel
for
free
sure.
to reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, that was incredible. I'm very excited. This was the first episode of 2024.
Woo-hoo!
So everybody that comes on the show, y'all got high expectations to live up to. But I'll wrap it up just like I do every week. I do want to remind you again that this episode is sponsored by Community Land Title. CLT is a full-service land, title, and escrow settlement provider here to protect your real estate investments. When you work with their knowledgeable team, you'll be guided through the process in a transparent and timely way. Shout out to Community Land Title. And just like at the end of every episode, I'll leave you with this. You have a gift. It's time to grow in it.